Hi.
Good morning and welcome to Move and Bloom, a safe space where together we can grow possibilities. I'm Anna Maria Pardo and I am super excited to have with me here today Eytan Lerner. He's an Anat Baniel method neuromovement practitioner and a senior Feldenkrais practitioner. He works all over the world with kids and adults facing challenges. And he owns NeuroDevelopment Center for Movement with Attention. He recently founded the Moving Center with his colleagues and friends, Andrea Hennen and Matty Willkinson. Together, they mentor children, families, and professionals around the globe, both virtually and in person. So without further ado, welcome, Eytan.
Hi, Anna Maria. Thanks for having me in your podcast.
Oh,
really, excited to be here. And I have to tell you, it's a great idea and it's a great thing. I mean, it's a high level interviews and way to go. Really love it.
Oh, you're so kind to say so. And it's so exciting to have people like you here to both educate and move us. I know that you have lots of stories to share from both your life and your students' lives, and I'm really excited to hear more about them.
Okay. Where would you like me to start? I mean, maybe at the beginning.
At the beginning, I'm always curious to hear what led you in particular to neuromovement.
That's a great question. You know, before the interview, I had to ask myself, just to remember, because we're talking 30 years. So I had to really go back and because, you know, you have to rely on your memory, and sometimes we tell ourselves stories. It's the nature of, you know, what we call memory. But why did what got me in? I mean, few things. First of all, it was personal journey.
Okay.
My journey was, I had to seek some way to create changes in my life, in the way I handle things, you know. So I don't want to get too personal, but it's actually, this is amongst other things, it's not the first, it's not the only one, was the key, let's say, key train or something, a vehicle that took me out of my personal depths into something else. And at the same time, I got a lesson, one-on-one lesson. I didn't know, I mean, I knew the name, then it was to the Feldenkrais, you know, but I got 2 lessons actually, one after the other, day after day. And I just said to myself, look, if anybody can get me to feel like that, wake my brain up, and I understood it's a brain from the beginning. I mean, it's not about, even though I came from movement, and we can talk about it also, I felt so good and so inspired, you know, everything opened up. And I said, oh, I have to learn how to do that. This is something I really need to know. So then I read a lot. I mean, actually, I started reading Feldenkrais books before that, but it was, you know, it was cognitive. It was like reading. It's not the sense felt side of it. And then I got to the first training, I think, ever in Israel that Anat herself created. It was back in 1990 in Jerusalem.
Wow.
Yeah. So
and that's, you know, a while ago.
That's a while ago. Yeah, that's a while ago. I mean, it's, wow, it is a while ago. So it was a journey. It was, you know, it has its ups and downs. It was a great 4 years course.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the same time, I did some other things. I'm a singer. Later on, I went on. I used to do like I don't know how do you call it, voice announcer or broadcaster, things that you do, and also like commercials and, you know, things like that, using my voice. Yeah, and it's important also because I'm actually I keep on using it today deliberately, especially with kids, to create distinctions, to create differences, to sometimes take them off their track of the habitual way of doing things, surprise them, you know, creating expectations. And
yeah.
So I think it's only at around 2008, no, 2005, I started doing Feldenkrais.
Okay.
And again, just be minded, it's when I say Feldenkrais, it's Feldenkrais, but Anat was Anat even then.
Yes.
And she was talking, and not just talking, because many people are talking about the brain, but she really understood it.
Yes.
And it was really, you know, inspiring.
Mm.
So 2004 or 5, I started doing it full-time job. All the way up to 2004, it was always in the background, teaching, workshops, but I was doing also something else. 2004 or 5, not sure, I actually started doing this exclusively. Yeah. And I've worked a lot with adults. I didn't touch children yet. I wanted to. I actually didn't dare. And I'm not one, I usually jump, you know, right off the cliff. I'm this kind of person who wants to try something, I do it. But with kids, I felt like I don't have the tools. I don't know what to do yet. I'm not going to touch it, but I'm going to look. This is the way I want to go.
You were dreaming about it.
Yeah, I marked it as something I want to do.
Okay.
And then I actually started working more and more. I developed a combination of vocal and awareness through movement workshops, and I worked with actors.
Yes.
In Israel, in projects, and also in the university. Not university is a place, the theater school.
Yes.
And I worked a lot with singers, mostly singers, but other musicians also, and teaching workshops and one-on-one, and starting kind of researching more the connection between voice, posture, actor. Yeah. And 2008, I started working with kids. I just said, okay, I'm going to do it. At the same time, my wife got pregnant for the first time. I think maybe it influenced it. You know,
Of course.
I think it's the first time I'm thinking about it now. Maybe there's a connection there. But 2008, I started working with kids, and I just with little toddlers, babies, with like minute things. I remember the first time that somebody parents brought to my studio a kid with autism, and I didn't know what to do. I just told them, look, I'm sorry. Not ready yet. Yeah, but you know, I started working a lot, and until 2009 actually, I worked a lot and actually learned much more, and knew what to do, and worked also with autistic kids. But then I went to Anat. Actually, it started before. I went in 2007 to California for something else, and I stopped by Anat's center, and then she was generous and kind enough to invite me and say, come on, spend a few days here. It was a basic training. And then she told me, why don't you come and have a children mastery?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And I want to stop you for just a minute and tie together a few of the things you've said, because they popped out as very important to me. That one, this work has been a vehicle for you, a vehicle of transformation. And we often talk about the benefits of, very specifically, because that's how people can begin to comprehend the work, but it is truly at its heart a vehicle for transformation. It's an engine that drives growth, specifically growth in the brain, or at least that's how I'm coming to understand it. And I'm saying this in part to bring us to your comment with the parents of the autistic child, that I'm sorry, I don't know. What a lot of growth it must have taken on your part to be at a place where you could observe yourself and know, I'm not ready. And to have the honesty and the courage to say, I'm sorry, I'm not ready. And I really want to highlight this, because most of us want to deal with honest, self-aware, transparent practitioners. And this work in particular does attract that kind of person. So I very much appreciate you bringing that up and sharing that story. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for highlighting this. I mean,
Yeah.
it's important to me. I didn't notice it like that. But yeah, look, I could have played like I know what I'm doing, but it's not. Sometimes playing like you know what you're doing gets you to know what you're doing.
True.
Deliberately, but then you have to know something before that. I didn't know anything. So it was too much then. It's interesting because turns out, I mean, I've worked with many kids with many conditions and challenges, brilliant kids, but luckily, I turned up working a lot with kids on the spectrum, a lot, with huge success. I mean, I love this work because with them, it's really, you have to really think out of the box and in the box. For me, it's like, it's harnessing and extracting everything I, can think of.
Yes.
My jazz singing and saxophone playing. I mean, the work around not playing in tune, doing mistakes deliberately, taking everything with everything I know, and I actually enjoy these lessons even more than the others. Turns out that with children, but with children on the spectrum, I got lucky to work a lot with them.
Yes.
So, and then you really have to think out of the box.
So you like that challenge, is what I'm hearing.
I like challenges. As a. Yeah. Just look, I just immigrated to Canada 3 years ago when I was 55.
Oh my goodness.
Thinking about it, in retrospect, it's crazy because I left a successful clinic and went to a place which I don't know what's going to happen here. One client was waiting for me. It was referred to me, but that's it. It's so I like challenges. Yeah, actually, I think it's something that I grow through and with. And yes, I enjoy the challenges in the lessons. I will not lie to you. Yeah.
So that's another vehicle of transformation for you, the challenges of stretching yourself to better serve these children.
Yeah. And to find how do I connect with myself in this lesson in a way that will make things clearer, like clarifying for me and for the little person there what's happening.
Can you share any of these stories with us?
It's interesting because I'm thinking a lot about it lately. The last year and a half, I mean, I'm just sidetracking a little bit, okay, if it's okay with you. I always thought that just the hands-on is not enough. I used to kind of divide myself into two because I'm also talking to the parents and, guiding them. And I've actually learned a lot from actually thinking about myself, presenting the lesson in my head, which gives me another layer of, observation. But the lesson is not happening. I mean, I know Anat says it a lot. The lesson is not happening on the table for me anymore. And the last year and a half, because I worked a lot through Zoom, and I love the challenge. Actually, now that I worked in person throughout the year, not like in the US, but yeah. But my work, the one-on-one work is totally different now. So for me today, and it was before, but now it got more clearer and detailed and deliberate. I'm actually, if we take again autistic kids, not all of them, but the ones that really, they go about the room and then they stop here and they fidgeting with something and they do this. I actually I see the lesson as the whole space that's happening around us. Me, the parents, the kid. I don't care if he's on the table or not. I mean, I do sometimes, but I would work and start specifying what he's doing after I'm actually, I think about it like as a detective work in the beginning. I'm just detecting small changes, small differences of how he's doing, what he's doing, mapping for me, what he's doing and when, try to find connections. And even if I'm mistaken, it doesn't matter, because if I attribute it to what's going on, then there is a communication. I hope I make myself clear.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Then, I had I can share, you know what? I can share the one that I just came from Israel now and worked with many kids. One of the kids actually wasn't autistic, but he had some traits, one of the diagnosis, but he had kind of a shrink cerebellum.
Yes.
Cerebellum. And, you know, his whole manner and the weight, the balance was off. Mm-hmm. And mostly he was terrified of strangers.
Okay.
And for him to see me, gentle as I am, trying to be, it's for him, you know, the alarm goes off, probably because he had physiotherapy and other things, not necessarily forceful, but I told the parents, look, it doesn't have to be forceful. It's the idea that you don't see the kid. If you don't see him, you can be so gentle, but you're still trying to fix him. Nobody likes it. We can sense it. So I worked with him for a week. And at the beginning, I couldn't touch him. I mean, I could force him on the table. I'm not going to do that. But I started slowly saying, oh, I see that he's running to daddy, crying. Just when I talked to him, when I said something, oh, this is something you can do, but this is something you cannot do. He's crying like some, you know, and I stayed with it. And I taught the parents, the father in this case, how to relate and describing, narrating what is going on, and then starting ahead of time, seeing what he's going to do, and then telling him to do that. And I could touch him from time to time when I said, look, if you're coming near me here, because the toy was there, I'm going to touch you, and I'm going to touch you here. It's like I'm slowing down. He's looking at me, and then he has to go or not go. He has to decide. Oh no, you can go to daddy. You can cry. It's okay. You can hug daddy.
Yeah.
Or you can come here if you want. If you come here, I'm going to touch you, and I'm going to work with you. So I'm doing that a lot. I mean, the father sent me like this long list of what's the changes in balance, in the way he's asking things. He started talking, you know, just after a week, and I did touch him, but it was mostly about spacing and mapping the way his conduct, his behavior, his movement, and the relation to me and the father and the space around him. Maybe even a better story. A kid that was brought to me, it just stopped me when you want me to take a breath.
Okay.
But a few years back, a few families from Russia came to me, especially to Israel. And all the kids were actually with CP, some of them severe. One of the kids was, of course, you know, they trained him to walk with a walker, and every day, few 100 meters. That's what they knew. But they heard about me and about the method. And he sat there on the table, doesn't know how to sit. He's 4-year-old. He was set, you know, all his life. So you can see that, but the first time I just approached him, I just saw this startling instinct, the moral or something, and he is starting to cry. So I just, you know, this is what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to touch him now. I'm just going to work as if I'm touching him, because talking, slowing down, accentuating something, doing something is already movement with attention. That's the way I see it. So I started telling him, look, because I saw that when I slow down to the point that I could see that he's expecting something to happen, but he's not startling and he's not bursting into tears. So I slow way down, and then I started saying later, I think it took a few sessions like that. I'm going to, where shall I go to get close to you? From here? And I can see him waiting, you know, and moving a little bit. Or from here, and then he's like a little bit like that. So I started playing with that, and then starting approaching. After a while, I could work with him, and then at the end of the week, he was, you know, breaking the falls, cracking up, laughing, and then they sent me a video a few weeks later that he's actually pushing to walk. He wants to do this. He wants to do that. I mean, I worked with what I thought was in the way of everything else. And
That is a magnificent story. And both these stories highlight something that perhaps first-time listeners might not be aware of yet. So I want to introduce the idea of the 9 essentials, because
Okay.
Anat was always talking about the brain in your training, but later on she went on to define the 9 essentials, which are, and I have a little bit I want to say about that. You can talk about them more here in a moment, but the 9 essentials create the conditions in the brain that allow us to learn even better than we normally would, right? This is what sets us up to learn. And one thing that I've noticed is that if I view the things I love, the processes I love through the lens of the 9 essentials, those that have most transformed me, those that have been most useful to me, all include some, if not all, of the 9 essentials.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes, you were telling your story, your first story about how even if therapy has been kind, people can sense when you're fixing them. If you're married, you know when your spouse is just with you versus talking to try and fix the problem. You know.
Yeah.
You know. And so we move from fixing to connecting. And you're talking a lot about making distinctions through a variety of ways. But I want to highlight this because you see this explosion of learning in the kids. Because it's addictive, I have to tell you that all my favorite processes do it. And I want to, again, applaud you for doing just one thing, which is not one of the 9 essentials, but in some of the other processes I love, we talk about choose the thing you're going to do and do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself is making a distinction. So we make the distinctions and we don't rush it. And as you begin to use the essentials more, the brain recognizes it. You don't teach it, you live it. And it's addictive. It's addictive, which is why these kids can then go on, and which is why we go on as practitioners. It
Mm-hmm.
becomes like food and water. Do you want to speak more to the 9 essentials?
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I think I have spoken, but I might detail them more. I think I want to say one thing. I think that you can take the 9 essentials
Mm-hmm.
and get into the fixing mode without noticing, which is something you have to stay on your toes all the time. Okay? Because people talk about the brain, but then you can talk and then you can understand and really work as much as we can understand it. But you can go slow, and you can, but still in your brain, in your mind, you're about, there's something that you want to shift him from here to there. It's not that we need to have goals, we need to have challenges. We need that. I don't think life is for total freedom. It's not going to work. But you can get the 9 essentials and get into the fixing mode. I think that when you step, and this is something I'm telling the parents a lot, or the professionals I'm mentoring from time to time, if you step back, before anything else, just don't think of it as essentials. That's what I do. Step back, zoom out, and just see the situation. What's your habitual way of reacting now? Can you inhibit this? Can you just look at it and not focus, not narrow, not like a tunnel vision, but, and don't wait for answers. You just see if you can look at yourself and your child and the child that you're working with by zooming out. And what I found, and we found in the center that we're working, especially when you do it over Zoom, is that the essential is actually springing out of this mode. Whilst if you take the essential and you're not in this mode and you don't see the necessity of stepping a little back, then you get into fixing. You can get into fixing. You can work with the child. Like, okay, now I'm going to do slow. Now I'm going to do flexible, but you're not flexible and not slow. And it's about you and it's not about the child at the moment. So I don't know if it makes sense, but this is something that
I want to highlight here for our listeners how absolutely true this is, because a lot of people who haven't trained in Feldenkrais or NeuroMovement will read the essentials, will read one of the books and say, but that's what I do. And what you have illustrated with your words is exactly what they're not doing. They're looking with a very narrow focus, using the 9 essentials, but with the narrow focus as opposed to the expansive sort of approach. So I love how you stated that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I think it's actually talks back to or refers back to what I said in the beginning with the autistic kid that I said that I don't know, but it's a different I don't know. I think it's a great thing to step back and say, even if you know a lot, say, what if I don't know? I want to really look, because I think we tend to, in life, to do things habitually, then it as if we know already, but you can't have any growth if you don't step back and just say, well, maybe I don't know. This is one thing. And the other thing, you asked me to talk about this, I think what you said before, I think the essentials are, it doesn't matter that I'm working with one thing. I don't see it like that. I can work with this child with the moral instinct, okay, or reflex, but through that window, I'm actually working on many, many things at once.
Of course.
I'm just not going to juggle and start doing, hey, look here, look that, because this is confusion. I want to have clarity. But I can see the rest of, I don't see I see the essentials as a, you can look at layers, I see it as like a chain. And it's not a one thing, but it's connected. So I don't really know where to put the limit and say, okay, this is the border between slow and gentle. Because when you slow down and you step back a little bit, you're already in a better position to be gentle, subtle, and to be flexible. Not necessarily, but in a better position to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. No,
I think I need your guidance now. Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you mean, and I'm gonna repeat what you said in a different way in case I got it wrong, because I don't know necessarily that I understood you. I have an idea that I understood you, but I may not have. And while we choose one path to start walking down, all the paths can lead to all the things that we're ultimately wanting to work with. They all take us into the forest.
Yeah.
And for me, choosing one thing means not being like, oh wait, but I should go back to this path, to this, So I think what you said captured it perfectly for me. I hope our listeners get it as well. And I'm going to then go back, because in my mind, I've been curious about how then this related, because you had mentioned before that you homeschooled your children.
Yeah, did I? I didn't say that I have two kids. I didn't.
You didn't say, but in our correspondence, you had mentioned your homeschooling, and I live in a huge homeschooling community, and I think I would really get what you're talking about. How did the homeschooling and the ABM journey intertwine for you?
It's a great question, because we talk usually about schools, which I have a lot to say about, but we were actually not homeschooling, it was unschooling. Now, in Canada, it's different. They came to Canada. My eldest is 12 and a half. Okay. He was 9 when he came here, up to the age of 9. And my daughter, Lihi, and my son is Ran, she was 6, and they were unschooled because we didn't have any curriculum. I don't believe in that. No. My goal was to see what I do believe that learning is natural. Mm-hmm. Yes. I can see everything I did in my life was not a result of a school. It was actually despite of school. I'm not saying school is not good. I'm saying for me, everything I learned was, from school onward, by my own journey. Actually, I had to fix the way I think, because there's a lot of places where you learn how not to think. Okay, mm-hmm. So learning to think it's a different idea. I don't see it in many schools today, especially not today, by the way. Mm-hmm. We don't want to get into politics, but that's another interview. But so unschooling or homeschooling is a different approach, because I trust them completely. And it went against all my upbringing. There's a lot of anxiety around that, but I was the one that initiated, me and my wife. So because I trust them, and I see the results today. They are much less constricted in the way they express themselves and especially think for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me to something important when I'm working with kids. I actually so appreciate their autonomy, even if I'm talking to a child that is so limited. I'm looking for the autonomy. I don't care that they will say, I wanted to say no about something. No, I don't want that. No, this is not, because I know that they're defining something, they're defining, maybe it's something out of habit, maybe it's a sign of distress, but it's also it's a autonomous reaction, and I want to cherish it, and I want this to grow, right? But in a way that they can learn and integrate it. So the homeschooling actually influenced me a lot. I think it's different because I'm looking, and I sometimes most of the time working with the parents, what to do with the kid now when he's changing so much. Do I take him to there? I am always telling them, look, I'm not a big fan of schools, so you should know that my approach is different. But I bring it to the table, and also to the room where I work, because I think trusting the natural ability to learn is really important. That you know that you don't teach. I don't think you can teach anybody anything. I can hardly teach myself, by the way, anything. I have the illusion sometimes that I'm teaching myself, but I don't think that we can really teach. And I think that what we're doing as practitioners is as close as you get to the best way of creating an environment that somebody can learn for themselves.
Do you follow, by any chance, Teacher Tom? He has a blog about play-based learning.
Teacher
Tom.
Teacher Tom. No.
Anyway, but one of his latest blog posts highlights that we don't know. In the educational system, we're not using the things we do know about how people learn. And it's just basically business as usual. And I have too many thoughts at once and I'm untangling them.
Yeah, it's okay. Take one.
I have to take the one path into the forest. I'll still get in the forest. So when we know what works, we're not using it. And when we don't know what works, we make stuff up and make people suffer through it. Which kind of backs up everything you're saying.
Yeah. Yes, it does. So to a great length, it does influence my work.
Yeah.
And I think I have a different approach. I must have, because I've done Primal Therapy and it's descending therapies for many years, and I've been working with groups also. I'm not a psychologist, but it's like in support groups, and many mistakes in this therapy. But it doesn't matter. The main thing, if you read Alice Miller, if you read people like Jean Jensen, she was my therapist and my teacher also in Idaho. The place of the child in the world, where the child, things that looks like in the relation between parents and kids looks like like harmless, can be a devastating to the child, really devastating. The world is collapsing, but you don't see it because the apparatus of repression is working automatically. So I'm not bringing it into it because it's me, but that's the way I see things. I will not. Why did I say it? Okay, I will not use any way of that might create any distress.
Right.
Okay.
And that's tying back to everything. So you're aware. So going way back, you're aware when you don't know. You're aware of the lenses you're wearing. And you're aware of how what you do and how you interact affects the person in your room, on your table. And this is where you're operating from. so that the person in front of you is being their autonomous, most joyous self, so that
Yeah.
their natural learning process can emerge.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Beautiful. That's wonderful.
Thanks.
I don't know what primal therapy is. Could you tell us briefly?
Yeah, it wasn't really, I mean, primal therapy is actually the notion that you can go back, the brain, the body, everything is stored, the memory is stored in the level of chemistry, everything else in the brain is just waiting for, the system is waiting for normalize itself all the time. This is why you have, we are symbolizing on people when we grow up and we fight with the spouse or we fight with the boss or whatever, but when you track it back, you find exact, not similarity, but exact, we call it primal, what's the name of it? It doesn't matter. You go back and you see that actually it started with something really naive, but when you got hurt and you had to repress it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a way of tracking back and working with it. And then you go back and look at the present in a different eye. Just look that this is the present, and differentiation is there all the time.
That's
it's
really
the key
important.
element.
That's really important, actually. And it's interesting that you have that background, because a lot of the kids that Anat sees, and perhaps the ones you see, do have quite a lot of things happen to them in their youth.
Sure.
How does that play into your work or how you approach things, or is it just there in the background for you?
It's in the background. I'm not going to do anything directly with that, but I can, there are things that I can see that the behavior or the attitude or the approach of the parent sometimes might be. I had it a few times in my career. The approach was abusive.
Oh.
And I say it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm in Israeli also, so it's, I think I'm a polite Israeli. I think so, but I'm saying, and I think it's important to say, because you're becoming also an enlightened witness, because the child needs to see that something out of his, because the grown-ups are the whole world, and he feels that he is the blame. If somebody, even for once, just said, look, this is not the correct way, it's not okay, then something in your system remembers it. And you have a way to relate to it, and don't see and don't look at it as if it's your fault. It's your fault and it's your blame. It's you to blame. So I would not allow this and I would not work with sometimes with parents that are really abusive. I'm not going to work. Not going to work.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's really important. That's super important. And as a child whose parents didn't always stop and say, no, that's not okay, I can say how very, very, very important it is to have the important adults in your life to say, that's not okay.
Yeah.
That's not okay. And that's where the I don't know comes in again, because we are trapped by the education we are given to respect authority, to trust that what physicians, therapists, friends, parents, grandparents are telling us is right. And then we start to mistrust our feeling. And if our feeling is telling us it's wrong, it's really important to tune into that. So I want to tie it back to your work and ask, how then do you help parents who don't yet have lenses on that allow them to move more in the direction of how we work?
Oh, it's a great question. It's a manifold answer, but first of all, the first thing I'm telling parents, sometimes you have parents coming in saying, I had the intuition that something is wrong, but the doctor tells me that it's okay. I heard it many times. Or the other way around. I felt that something is wrong, but the doctor actually sends me to hell, with a hellish journey, like frightening me to death. So I'm not a doctor, but I usually tells them, look, intuition is something to listen to, especially if it's your child. That's what I would do. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're 100% correct, but if you feel something, and this is something I'm using also in when I work with a child, with a new client, a new student, I would say to the parent, look, I guide them to write every day in an intensive. 1-2 sentences. I see something. I imagine. I just telling them ahead of time all the all the things that they may say, like to reject whatever. And so, look, just write down. I imagine I saw him do this. I think I saw him do that. He did this. And then look at it after a while. Then we'll sit together after 2-3 weeks and then look at it. Because I think I'm teaching them, trying to teach them, or not teach actually. I'm stressing the importance of the intuition. And when somebody, first of all, if your intuition tells you that something is wrong, you should check it, especially if it's your child. Yeah. Trust what you feel and check it. And also, I think that by working deliberately on them, being a better observant of small and minute differences, and teaching them how to see where the intuition comes from. Because I imagine, I can tell you a story. I just saw this boy again. He's 8 now. I've been working with him. Sorry, he was diagnosed as ASD, echolalia. He came to me when he was 3. Okay. Didn't say I, didn't point out, and many things. And he was brilliant. He did talk. The mother told me, I told her this, I guided her what to do. And then she told me, look, after the first day, I saw him do this and this, but it looks too much of a coincidence. I said, okay, it doesn't matter. Don't judge it. I don't care. I'm not here to get your, I want you to work with me, but just, we're just learning how to observe now, how not to judge, but to observe. So just, then the second day she tells me, look, there's another coincidence. I think I saw him doing this and that. I said, okay, write it down. Let's see and I'm teaching them how to look at differences also within the lesson. I'm sure most of them don't get it. Today, I think I'm better at it, much better, so they can see clearly, most of them. But then after almost the end of the week, she told me, look, too many coincidences. And I felt that something but I couldn't point it out. Now I can point it out. But what's more important, I feel that intuitively, I feel that something, and I see something has changed. I cannot really pinpoint exactly. And then we went on working. I have great stories about him. He's one of 2 kids that I've been working that luckily or whatever, he got out of, he's not diagnosed anymore as autistic. I'm just worked with him now. They haven't seen me. I saw them last year on something that has to do with speech, little small, things to do with speech and articulation. But so this is the way I approach it. And intuition. This is something I try to bring the parents, being on the same page with me as much as I can. And this is one of the tools that I use. But the first thing I tell them, look, is step back. See if you can look and don't know what to do, but step back, just look at it and say, oh, I think I see something, this is happening now for me, and this is happening now for my child. And then I work with them through the essentials. If they come for a long period or periods, I do it a lot. And today I combine also Zoom sessions. Even the one that I work in person, I do also Zoom sessions. Perfect. Because it's a great constraint. Yes. And it's a great, and amazing, and I actually work with the kids sometimes directly without the parents. They just look. And you see amazing, this is the reason why I came to Israel now. I actually worked with 2 families. They saw great changes. I was blown away, to see that. And they actually gathered more families and invited me over because of the Zoom sessions. So that's incredible. That's just fantastic. Yeah, thanks. And it's a tool that it's actually combined. As I told you, when I work now, I see the Zoom. I see the space that as if I cannot touch, as one with the one hands-on work, and it's the same language, but in a different vehicle or different tools. Doesn't matter. Yep. Yeah. I love that. More improvisation. It's also improvisations. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I love that. So we've talked a lot about a lot of different things. I'm sure we could go on about many others. I can already see that we may have to do a follow-up interview one of these days. But I'm wondering if we could bring this all back together in a way that we can leave someone listening with perhaps a pearl of where to start. When you're starting your journey, if you're contemplating starting NeuroMovement lessons or whatever, whether it's training with you, like supervision with you, or bringing a child to you, what would you say to people looking just to start?
It's different if you look at people, you talk to people that are contemplating and considering becoming practitioners than parents. For me, it's different. It's more immediate to talk with parents, because practitioners, I would say, it's a longer training, a longer process of working with yourself first. But to parents, I would say first what I started saying before, being able to step back and appreciate your child. I mean, I'm sure everybody is doing it. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm not the one to say that you don't appreciate your child, but step back and really appreciate your child. But before that, see if you can just find a way to slow down yourself, you know, I'm looking for the word. It doesn't matter. Yeah, and just create a space within yourself, first of all.
Yeah.
That in this space, everything is okay. It's okay, and you can observe your reaction, and you can look and appreciate your kid more. Because the first thing it's not the first thing, I mean, I skipped that. I don't know how. I'm teaching the parents is how to look at what the child is really doing. It's not so obvious that we're doing it, you know, even because most of us will immediately skip to what's not working, you know, and then you get linear, and then you get into fixing. So how we get into connecting, and this is where also homeschooling helps me, because you go against the stream.
Yes.
And it's important to go against the stream and to challenge everything that you know, but it gives you at least one thing is that you can take the time and not know, but appreciate it, and don't hurry up to get into any conclusion. So take the time and see what your child is good at, what he likes best. This is the place where I start working. I don't care what they don't know. I mean, everybody. I mean, this is something that Anat is saying a lot. They already know what they don't know. They don't need me to stress. They don't need the parents to do that.
Yeah.
So let's shift the whole focus into it's not the focus. It's zooming out and look at the whole, and what's the best that's coming out of the child, what he likes to do.
Yeah.
This is where I would start. And then when you read the 9 essentials, and when you're looking for a practitioner, it's either me or somebody else, you will have a different way of looking at it. And this is something that if we can talk about a little bit, I don't know if you have time.
Well, yeah, the only constraint on us is the Facebook will cut us off at 55 minutes, but we're good so far.
Okay, so thank you, because we are doing that. I mean, I found Matty Willkinson is my dear friend. I love him, and he's like a same-minded, you know. I mean, we're different, me and Andrea and him and me. But we are also very much alike. And we actually creating something that is becoming like a mutual language, not just language of talking, of thinking and creating a different thing. This is why for years, I wanted to do this. And then I initiated this idea to create a virtual and then in-person center of people that have this ABM background, a lot of work around the world. And Matty is someone that I worked with, you know, shoulder to shoulder in Denmark. Andrea was corresponding a lot over the Facebook over the years, and I have great partners, and we created something that I think is really great now. We're working with parents, really a lot of conversations. breakout rooms also for working with the kids, but also a lot of conversation. And now we're going to take it to in person, take it to the streets, because we're going to go, once the COVID permits, we're going to fly. We're going to be probably in Europe this coming fall or winter. And then we're going to do like what I do anyway when I fly abroad, but now we're going to do it as 3 partners. Workshop for parents, mentoring for people who works with kids, not just Feldis and ABMers, speech therapists that are approaching and other people. And yeah, we interview people, not the way you do, we do something else. Because we collaborate with other, like Dr. Zelinsky's, the Mind and Eye Institute, and Paul Majul, we had an interview with, and we are actually referring people back and forth from and to them.
Yeah.
And like try to create the biggest net
Wonderful.
we can. Yeah. So this is the main project, and we are all, I think the 3 of us feed off this mutual conversation and work. We actually invested thousands of hours the last 2 years talking and creating, and we actually, I still feel that it's actually took me even higher up in the way I can see things today and work with them. So
wonderful.
This is something that we're very excited to be part of.
I can sense your excitement through the screen.
Yeah. I know.
That's wonderful. So this is through the Moving Center, and you have your own practice. And do you have any other new projects you wanted to mention?
I think the mentoring center is going to be the next one, because I'm working now on working with people like in Israel or other places where I can mentor them through Zoom or not Zoom, working with a child. I'm talking about speech therapy from therapists from New York or OTs. I've done that in the past. Now it's going to be much more precise, and we're going to do it as a team. And it's going to be really focused on bringing these ideas of the 9 essentials into other modalities.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's super exciting as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Will you drop all your links in the comments below once this interview has concluded, so people know where to find you and your colleagues?
Yes. Once this interview is over.
Yes.
Okay. You mean the website and the Facebook and everything else?
Yeah, and I can tell you how to do it, but for our listeners, look in the comment section below.
We'll do that,
interview when it's over, so that in case you want to get in touch with Eytan or Andrea or Matty or all of them as a group, so that they can enjoy the wonderfulness too. Yeah.
Yes, thanks.
Is there anything else you wanted to say before we sign off?
It looks like I really enjoyed this talk, the conversation with you.
So
you're doing it so fluently, and it's if you ever want to do a follow-up or whatever, I'm here. I really enjoy it, and thank you for the opportunity.
It has been a magnificent interview. I am going to love going back and listening to it again. Thank you for sharing so generously of your time and expertise. I know
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So until next time,